Hello, everybody. Welcome to All Villa, No Filler. Please remember to like and subscribe. Subscribe if you love the mighty Villa and want us to finish in the Champions League places next season. And if you don't, well, then you support Birmingham City. They're the rules. I make them. You can break them. Don't break them. Subscribe. Anyway, well, I feel like the movie Twisters is coming out soon. Do you remember the original Twister back in the mid-90s? Tornadoes everywhere, you know, trying to hold the door down, and the dad gets blown off into the tornado. One of the most shocking scenes of the 90s for me. Still not over it. Well, Aston Villa's transfer window is a little bit like that. It is non-stop. It is a bit, it's just wild. Yeah. Quite a lot to take in. Well, today, following on from yesterday's news that Jaden Philogene Badace is on his way back to Aston Villa for £13 million. Amadou Onana, Everton's midfielder, Belgium international. He is on his way to Aston Villa, according to reports. David Ornstein was the first for the exclusive, the Oracle himself. David Oraclestein, they should call him. He said that the Villa are in the process of finalising an agreement with Everton to sign Onana, deal worth 50 million and personal terms in place. Unai Emery wants the 22-year-old, and that was followed up by Fabrizio Romano later that day, who said that the deal was done for 50 million and a sell-on clause included. Well, wow, Amadou Onana. He's on his way to Aston Villa. I did tweet about a month ago, so maybe Monchi's reading my tweets, that I thought Onana and Yuri Tielemans looked very, very nice in centre midfield together. I think they'd make a good Premier League pairing, not for Everton, but for Aston Villa. Clearly, Monchi and Unai Emery saw that, and they sat down in their data sessions together, got the maps up, and they just got my tweet up. Right, they were looking at his data. They were saying, like, look at him. He's a great tackler. He wins aerial duels. He lays the smack down on any midfielder who dares to come near him. And then they saw my tweet and they went, Frankie Maguire's just said that All Villa No Filler, that loser. He's just said he wants to see Tielemans and Onana play together in Premier League. We cannot deprive Frankie Maguire of what he wants, can we? Get that 50 million quid from the back of your, find the coins down the back of your sofa, Monchi, and you throw it at Everton, and Everton go, thank you very much. I'll take that. I'll take that and get myself out of PSR problem, all right. So, 50 million quid. So, right, mention PSR first. I don't know how this is all working with PSR. I don't know whether one day this will all come back to haunt us. With that caveat, I don't know. But that said, Aston Villa seems to be operating very cannily. We seem to be operating in a way with Monchi and the scouting department with sales and signings that seem to make a lot of sense. Onana's 22 years of age. He's very tall. His aerial duel victories are one of the best in Europe. He's 6'1". His rangy legs, his sort of lanky build, I guess. He wins tackles that you don't expect him to win. He's a serious physical presence, athletic, clever, positionally good, knows what he's doing in that centre of the park, but he just adds a sort of physicality that I think you could argue Aston Villa last season lacked. Let's go back to, from January onwards for Aston Villa, I would say that our biggest weakness, and I've said this a million times during the season, and I've repeated again, our biggest weakness was that sometimes we would go from looking composed and in control to casual. And it would almost be, and a great example of this is the Brentford game where we were 2-0 up and they came back and went 3-2 ahead, and then we drew 3-3. It was almost as if Aston Villa would take that 2-0 lead, would be totally in control, passing it around. It's all great. And then it just went casual, from composed to casual. And the other team would just go for it. Throw the tactics out the window, throw their positional sense out the window. Just bloody go for it. Send a fullback who's fast like Sergio Reguilon, bombing down that wing, get him to the byline and send a ball into the area. They've got players like Ivan Toney and Bemo, various other physical players who can win headers and win crosses and do whatever. And Aston Villa would just casually stand there and go, "Oh, look at that ball! Isn't that a pretty ball? Let me get my camera out and just get a quick photo of it. Oh yeah, put it on Instagram now. Just post it on Instagram. Put it in black and white. 1930s themed Hollywood. And then before you know it, they look behind them. Hold on, just conceded a bloody goal. Whose fault is that? I was busy on Instagram. What were you on? You're on Twitter, were you? How many likes did that tweet get? You fool. So you see, that's what it would look like. We're just standing around going, oh, yeah. Anyway, it was almost as if it was quite basic things that Villa were lacking at times, in the sense of fantastic on the ball, brilliant football team, but sometimes a player who just does a bit of Sunday league screaming. Screams at everyone to wake up. I'd say Tyrone Mings was the big loss last season in that respect. And somebody who just has a bit of pace, physicality, can impact the game physically. And I don't think we really had players of that ilk last season. And whilst we did fantastically well, whilst it's evidence of how fantastic the players did and how fantastic the coaching staff and Professor Unai did, I think it's also probably a hint that Villa could be got at. And that was happening a little bit too often for my liking from around late December onwards. Think of the Man United 3-2 away. Think of when Newcastle came and physically overawed us at Villa Park. Think of when Chelsea came and physically overawed us in the FA Cup. When we were 2-0 up against Chelsea at home, they came back to 2-2. Think about the Brentford game. Think about Nottingham Forest. We were 3-0 up. They came back to 3-2. Just little things like that. The amount of times you'd cross a ball into the area and Villa would just concede because no one was winning headers. Very basic stuff. Amadou Onana, one of the best aerial duels. Look at these stats on FBref. Aerials won. Top. He's better than 94% of all midfielders for that. Tackles won. He's better than almost every other midfielder in world football at it. Those quite basic things, they're not basic. It's a skill in itself. It's not what Andres Iniesta and Lionel Messi are best at, but you need players around you who can do things like that. And that's what Onana therefore introduces to Villa that I think we otherwise lacked. And what I would say is that Villa have signed a few players who are quite tall. Onana now, Nedeljkovic. Don't sleep on Nedeljkovic. 6'1", I think he is. 6 foot, 6'1". Watch videos of him, right? And the thing I keep noticing is, firstly, he's tall, he's rangy, he can win tackles, but he's really good at going forward. His cross into the area he's got a really good cross on him. I can't comment just yet on whether he'll be able to repeat that in the Premier League. But what you're seeing there is a player who I think has a lot of great raw attributes. There's something Monchi in the scouting department also saw to suggest that he's worth investing in. Champions League experience. But something I really notice about him in those highlights, when he goes in for a tackle, he reacts super quick. And it's, sorry for that, probably hurt your ears there, didn't it? High impact. High impact. Like that. Onana, high impact. I'm not sure Villa were a high impact team necessarily last season. So I think introducing that to Villa in the form of Nedeljkovic, keep an eye on him, watch him in pre-season. He's the player I'm actually most intrigued to see exactly what happens with him. Because I tell you, aesthetically looking at him, he looks like a young bloody Gareth Bale. Sorry, I said it. I know, I'm not saying he's going to end up being Gareth Bale, but aesthetically, he sort of slightly reminds me of him when he was that age. We'll see. We'll see how he goes. He might be absolute rubbish. And then, everyone will clip this up and say, look at Frankie, we're talking bollocks again. But no, I think there's reason to be excited about him. But Onana, aerial duels. Also, where does he fit into the team? Okay? I don't think he's a Douglas Luiz replacement. He's not Douglas Luiz. Which makes it quite interesting. Because then you've got, because Onana he sits in a double pivot. That's what he does for Belgium as well. Him beside Yuri Tielemans. Tielemans plays that Luiz role for Belgium, right? So for Aston Villa, you would have to assume that Ross Barkley, Yuri Tielemans, and maybe John McGinn. I'd rather not John McGinn, but Tielemans and Ross Barkley play that Luiz role from now on forth. Maybe Barrenechea does as well. Barrenechea, good tackler, reads the ball really well, or reads the game really well, sorry. And then once he wins a tackle, he's good. He's very good at simple distribution. I wonder if his physical profile and his style can be molded into being a Douglas Luiz kind of player. I don't know. Again, I'd have to see. Maybe that's just not a role he could ever play. But I would not be surprised to see it maybe tried out. Maybe. But for now, I think the Luiz role is probably going to be um, Barkley and Yuri Tielemans. And I think that, and maybe we'll make another signing, who knows? But then that CDM role, you've got Kamara and Onana and Baranachea. Baranachea, the one who I think is quite versatile, but also, what can Onana do? He can probably go into a back three. He's tall, he wins headers. So if Aston Villa want to play with a three at the back this season, I wouldn't be shocked if Onana goes and sits back in there at times. There were times that season where when Aston Villa were in possession, the right back would bomb on and Boubacar Kamara would come back into the right back role, but in a back three. I think Onana will do the same. Now, when Boubacar Kamara comes back in December or whenever, it will be interesting to see how that works. But what it does suggest with Villa signing Onana, statement. It's a statement signing. 50 million quid is a statement price, but he is clearly one of the best young midfielders in Europe. He's 22 years of age. We've made two, I would say, statement signings in Ian Maatsen at left back and Onana in centre midfield. We've got Baranachea, Eiling Jr., Jaden Philogene, Ross Barkley, Costa Nedeljkovic, right? Well, all of that I think might suggest is that Villa really are going to go for it hard again this season. We're not just going to say we got Champions League and carry on as before. No, I think it suggests an evolution. I think it's strengthening the squad. But I think that in Maatsen and Onana, you've got two players who I would argue do improve the first 11 to last season. I think Luiz going is a big loss. I'm not sure yet that I'm confident we've filled that, but I'm interested to see in pre-season what we do and how we line up the team. And I have a feeling Tielemans is going to be that man now. And then Barkley can come in and do whatever. But it also shows that Villa, aren't willing to just wait around and go, well, we've got Boubacar Kamara, who's a quality CDM. We're going to wait for him to come back in January, February. No point. Spend the money now and just get Onana in because we've got the Champions League and Kamara might never play in the Champions League if we don't make it through the opening group stage. Aerial duels, aerial duels, tackles. Now, going forward, his stats aren't brilliant, Onana. But you could also say that those stats are part of an Everton team who, when Onana gets the ball and looks forward, does he have the players around to aim for? Is he playing a style of football under Sean Dyche and having to generally be the more defensive team where he cannot really show his more the progressive side of his game? And that actually trying to be progressive for Everton is really hard because most of the time when you try and play a ball forward, it doesn't necessarily really lead to as many opportunities as it would perhaps playing for Aston Villa in our current state, a Champions League club. I think that seeing Onana at Villa, it might be interesting to see how he can develop progressively as well. Who knows? Maybe I'm underestimating it, and that maybe he will actually fit into a kind of Luiz role and sort of players and sort of box to box, high energy midfielder who wins tackles but is also good going forward. But I think that the progressive side of his game is where he could definitely improve. And I think that under Unai Emery and at Aston Villa in the way we play, I do think that he can offer a lot in that regard. So yeah, so 50 million. Like I said about PSR at the start, I don't really know how this is all going to work next year. I have no idea. But if you think about the centre midfield area now, you've got Onana, Tielemans, Barkley, McGinn, Ramsey, Rogers, Branichair. Not bad, is it? Pretty strong. I still think there's still a couple of places I think Villa could still get better. Backup goalkeeper still worries me a bit. Worries me a lot. I still want another centre back. I still want a big, hard, bastard centre back. And I want to see a kind of, if Duran goes, some kind of replacement for him, but a kind of a lot picker player. Buendia might be the one who comes back in and just does that anyway, but just an Alex Baena type or something like that. But also, yeah, as I say, if Duran goes, it'd be interesting to see what the sales are this summer, if there's still more to go out. I think Duran's almost certainly going to go by the sounds of it. BRB, I don't know. I still think those links are quite tenuous at the moment. It does feel like the noise is going on, or there's probably conversations being had of some kind. I think Diaby would be. I think his first season he had to play and adapt to a new role for Aston Villa. Um, Playing as a second striker, he normally is a winger. He's not the most physical guy, so that's getting used to having big, hard centre backs on your back all the time. That's hard. And I think he adapted pretty well. I think his numbers are really pretty good for a debut season in a new league, a new culture, a new team. And I think there's plenty there to therefore it's the first rung on the ladder to build on and keep going. I think there's plenty more to come from Diaby, but if Aston Villa get a ridiculous £80 million bid, I mean that's what we should. If Saudi Arabia clubs out there want him so badly, say to them, well, you've got all this money, apparently. Well, all right, well, we think he's worth 80 million. What say you? And say it's two or three of their clubs and see what happens. Because, getting the profit on him, you're not going to get massive profit if you just sell him for 60 million, are you? For what we did last year, what was it, 40, 50 million we spent on him? So you want a tidy profit on him. But yes, I think Onana is exciting. It's exciting. It's a statement signing. Statement. Big, physical, athletic, clever, wins aerial duels. My God, if we can prevent just 5, 6 of the type of goals we conceded last season, next season, that might be the difference between, who knows, a fourth and a third. So yeah, let me know what you think. Very exciting times. I don't think it's going to end either. I'll try and get someone on, an expert, to talk about, how Onana played at Everton, what to expect from him. Same as Philogene. I'll do my best if I can find anyone. But yeah, let me know what you think. Exciting times at the Villa, innit? Up the mighty Villa.